Greetings, Bat family, and welcome to Holy BatCast, brought to you by real fans for real movies. You can find Holy BatCast all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, you'll find us. We are also on Patreon. If you love the show and you want to support us that way, you can. You don't have to. No pressure, but we are on Patreon. You can go to Holy BatCast. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. That's what you can do. And a big old thank you to our patrons. You guys are the coolest. Thank you for making it that much easier for us to keep the show going. It just takes a weight off our shoulders and it means the world. So thank you to our patrons. You guys are the best. We're part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. You can check out those shows at rf4rm.com. And as always, I'm your bat host, Andy DiGenova. You can find me on all the socials as well. Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Letterboxd. Yeah, I think those are the important ones. Whatever. It's always just Andy DiGenova. So this episode, we are going to be kind of doing a little bit of a wrap-up about Icons Unearthed Batman, now that it is finished after 6 episodes. Yeah. And we're going to do another episode of The Batman, and then depending on what time it is, we might finish up with some emails. No promises, but I don't know. I'm feeling pretty positive about it. It'll be good. Anyway, joining me for all this fun, it's our favorite guy. It's our favorite co-host. It is the second cutest co-host I have on the show after my wife. It's Brendan Lowe. Hi, Brendan.
Hello. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. Welcome back.
It's been a little while. I think the last time I was on, probably Touch of Serendipity, actually, was the first episode of
It's
Icons.
true.
Yeah, Unearthed.
Oh, well, thank God for that. Look at that. We're working it out. Did you listen to the one where me and Catherine talked about the escape room?
Yes.
And I called her the cutest co-host, and I was like, well, and also Brendan. So I want you both to feel loved. Is the important thing.
I get it. I totally understand. If there wasn't half a planet between us, things would be a little different. I know that. So that's some solace I take. It's all good. But honestly, the only one I haven't listened to is the one you and Jamie did with the Teen Titans movie, because I haven't seen that movie yet. But I am really keen to hear your reviews of the Batgirl Begins episode. So I might just skip the movie part and listen to that. So,
well, you can do that, and that's fine. I would also say, not to give anything away, but you should watch the movie. Yeah. You should. It's really good. The movie's really good. We finally got around to watching it, and then we did review parts 1 and 2 of Batgirl Begins. So it was a very animation heavy episode, that one.
And a big cartoon ape on there as well.
Yes, indeed. Right. Anyway, we're going to get to all that fun stuff, but first we got to talk about Manscaped. So guys, summer is coming, and that means beaches, and it means your beach bod. So are you ready to soak up those summer vibes and unveil your ultimate beach bod? Well, you're in luck, because our friends over at Manscaped have you covered from head to toe. With the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, the ultimate all-in-one grooming kit is set to have you looking and feeling your best in the summer sun. Trust Manscaped and unlock the confidence you need to turn heads this season. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code BATSCAPED. So let's make this summer your smoothest one yet. Batscaped for 20% off and free shipping. So whether it's for summer or whether you just been meaning to get to it, it's never a bad time to up your grooming game or try something new or to treat yourself to something nice, and Manscaped's got you covered. So go to manscaped.com. The Performance Package 5.0 is great because it gives you a little bit of everything. You can see what you like. But if you don't want to go all in and commit, that's okay. You can go a la carte. The trimmer is great. The Handyman face shaver is great. The deodorant is great. The cologne is great. All of their stuff is awesome. It's top of the line. You won't regret it. And you'll save a little money with that code BATSCAPED. So if you're going to go to manscaped.com and do a little shopping, all I ask is, if you're going to make a purchase, use that promo code, save your 20% off, get your free shipping, and you're also supporting Holy BatCast when you do it. So big thank you to Manscaped for continuing to sponsor the show, and a big thank you to all of you out there who have already ordered from Manscaped and used that code. That means a lot. That's another thing that you can just do, that you're doing something nice for yourself and nice for us at the same time. It's good karma. So thank you guys. We really do appreciate it. And thank you to Manscaped. So let's move forward, Brendan. Icons Unearthed. Yeah, part 1. It didn't feel that long ago, but it's already over.
And it's funny, when it got to like Thursday, Friday this week, I was kind of looking for it. Like I needed
I know.
because it like a 6-week run, like it sort of becomes habit after a while, after say 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, I really bummed that there wasn't, part 7, because there was a lot more stuff they could have covered that they didn't. So
yeah, I know, it's crazy. Like, 6 weeks went by fast. I guess it's worth noting it is on Vice TV, so that is the place you should go. Fortunately, one of our listeners was kind enough to post these to YouTube, and for those who don't subscribe to cable anymore, because that's really the problem. Like, I don't subscribe to cable, so I couldn't get access to it. But fortunately, one of our listeners put them up on YouTube. But sadly, they have been pulled down. I knew it was only a matter of time. I knew it was only a matter of time. I'm glad that they waited until I watched all 6. So yeah, unfortunately they've been pulled down again. But if you're out there, I'm sure that you can find ways to watch all 6 episodes if you haven't. If you've got a subscription to cable, or someone in your family does, you can use that to then log into the website and watch it that way. But I thought it was worth noting that they're not on YouTube any longer, because this morning I was like, oh, I'll put one on as I'm eating my cereal and drinking my coffee, and they were gone. But oh well.
Bugger.
So yeah, we did review episode 1, so we don't have to like retread that ground, but there have been 5 more episodes. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what those episodes were, and then I just want to hear your overall thoughts, Brendan, and then maybe we can just call out stuff that sticks out in our heads that we thought was extra interesting or memorable. But episode 2 was My Smile is Just Skin Deep. And so that was essentially part 2 of the production and release of Batman 89. Then episode 3 was Things Change, and that was all about Batman Returns. Episode 4 was called Bat Nipples and Ice. So I'm sure you all know that was about the 2 Schumacher films. Yeah, they had to get lumped together. I know how you love that, Brendan.
Yep.
Episode 5 was I'm Not Wearing Hockey Pads, and that was all about the reboot, Nolan taking over, and also Batman Begins. And then finally, episode 6 was In Heath's Shadow, so that was very much about The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, and then what the future brings, which is funny because after The Dark Knight Rises, we know what the future brought, because there have been 2 more versions since then.
Yeah. Barely got mentioned.
But we'll get to it. Yeah, we'll get to that. Well, we'll get to it now, I guess. Yeah, it's crazy that they did not even show an image of Ben Affleck as Batman.
Not at all. I think we got like like a second grab from a trailer or something of the Batman. But yeah, nothing, not a still image or anything of Affleck, which I thought was very, very odd.
It was, but they did have a quick little clip from BVS, but it was of Superman.
Yes, they did, which again, weird. But
yeah. And I feel like at the very, very beginning of episode 1, you're right, there might have been like a quick shot of Pattinson. And at the very, very end, when they talked about just sort of, and Batman lives on and there will be more versions and blah, 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 they just showed a shot of the poster of the Batman.
Yep.
And that was it. So it was just interesting that they really chose to ignore those 2. And I understand not digging into them because they're so recent. We already know we already know the current stories with both of those versions of Batman, and it's not far enough away where people are going to start telling you the untold stories.
Yeah, but you could have still had 5 to 8-10 minutes of just like, in 2016 we saw Ben Affleck take over the mantle, and just a few little, like, just mention it, like have a little chat about something, like,
right, exactly. Just a mention of, and of course, after The Dark Knight Rises, that was not the end of the character on film, because, and then at least give a little bit of lip service to the Zack Snyder Ben Affleck version, and then the Pattinson Matt Reeves version. Even if you're not going to dig into it, like, at least acknowledge it. And I feel like a blink and you miss it little image doesn't really count.
No.
So yeah, it was an interesting choice.
That's the only part, in my opinion, where they dropped the ball, because the rest of it was really comprehensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And as comprehensive as they could be. But what I thought was interesting, and I think it was kind of cool actually, because like we said when we did episode 1, is we've heard so many of these stories, especially from like the Burton Schumacher era over the years. We've heard so many of those stories already.
Mm-hmm.
And what was cool is that the people they talk to in this documentary are people we don't always hear from. People like the
Yes.
casting directors and the costume designers and the concept artists and the stunt coordinators. And so they tell very different stories than what we had already heard. And so that was actually kind of a nice, I think it was a nice silver lining for, if they couldn't get Christian Bale and Chris Nolan to talk, which understandable, we got to
Mm-hmm.
hear different types of stories from the people who they could get.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. It's, we had very comprehensive, documentaries and makings of the original quadrilogy with the special edition releases in 2005, which
Mhm.
was 19 years ago, which is a terrifying thought that next year's the 20th anniversary of Batman Begins. But I digress.
Well, it's like you said when we watched the first episode about how it's like, oh, we picture all these people from the 2005 documentaries,
Yes.
and now we're seeing them almost 20 years later, and we're like, oh shit, that's right, yeah, it's been
Yeah,
20
we're
years.
all getting older. We're all going to die. Yay! But
Woo!
yeah, it was they did. I have to commend them. They did a really good job of. I mean, yes, they tell us stuff that we already knew that was in those documentaries, and that's fine because you can't avoid it. But for the most part, and as you said, the people they chose to speak to, the stories that we heard were either things that we didn't really know, were things that we absolutely didn't know, or they were just different viewpoints of things that we did already know. So we were getting different
Yeah.
perspectives and stuff, which, like I said, hats off to them. They did a really good job of just not retreading old ground. That,
Mhm.
yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, I was fanging for another episode on Thursday, Friday just gone because I was really enjoying it because I was getting something out of every episode. So, I can now watch. Oh, I've now got two really good comprehensive documentaries about the original quadrilogy. Um, I mean, in terms of the Nolan ones, I think the best one they did was on the special edition box set that came out. How they had that, I think it's almost feature length, the sort of like the making of the Dark Knight trilogy. I think it was even called, which is good. But I don't drag out that Blu-ray all that often to watch it. So to have
Mhm.
another comprehensive making of series of the Nolan trilogy too is good because, as we said, like it's nearly 20 years since Batman Begins came out, so it's good to have an updated one to sit side by side with the one from, I think it was, I want to say 2013. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll agree with you because, and I think that we did hit on this when we reviewed episode 1. Is when I heard this was coming out, I literally was just like, "Oh, that's cool," but I didn't make a big deal of it. I didn't mark the calendar because I was like, "Yeah, I've watched every Batman documentary," and
Mm.
so I didn't think it would have anything new to offer, and I'm so glad that I did check it out because you're right. I looked forward to it every single week, and I got something out of it every single episode. So for the folks out there listening who are like felt like maybe we did at the beginning, it is, if you're a Batman fan, it is absolutely worth your time. Yes, you get some stories that are tried and true that you already know, but you get a lot of new stories. And to your point, Brendan, you get some new perspectives on stories we knew, which was really interesting. And so it was fun to hear the new stories. It was fun, but it was also fun to just relive the buildup and release of each of these films too.
Yes.
And doing, watching Icons Unearthed, and then on well, when you're hearing this, it'll be 2 episodes ago, but 2 episodes ago, the Batman movie poster episode. Between those two things, it really was like I was living in like a time machine of kind of touching those moments of time when each movie came out, and it has made me want to just do a full Batman franchise rewatch. And
Yes. I had the same impact
and,
actually.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, it's very cool to hear about, oh, and this is how it happened, and then it came out, and people loved it, and it was a hit, or it wasn't a hit, or what, whatever the case may be. It takes you back to that moment in time, and that was really fun too. So for anybody listening who didn't check it out, I would highly recommend checking it out. And I would buy this. Like, I just checked just
Yes,
to
I
be
would.
sure that
Yeah.
it's not on iTunes. It's not. If it was, I would buy it, because I would love to just revisit it the same way we revisit those other Batman documentaries that we like so much.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just got the giggles. I'm sure you can hear Henry like thumping past my office, just running back and forth.
I heard something. I didn't
Yeah.
know if it was a tantrum or if it was like happy. I couldn't
No,
tell. There was just some yelling and running.
he's just running between his bedroom and Jess and my bedroom, and like the landing is right outside my office door. So he doesn't know how to walk quietly, and everything's a run at the moment. So it's just back and forth. I'm like, oh my god. So sorry if you can hear that in the background.
Yay, toddlers.
Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, Harley's asleep, so we're not going to get her cameo this week. So I guess Henry's going to have to do.
It is funny though, mentioning him, because the last time I did a full franchise rewatch was when I had the 6 weeks off when he was born, 3 years ago. So, but I mean, I went all in on that one. I watched everything I started at the 66 movie, went all the way through. We didn't have the Batman at that stage, so I finished it with Zack Snyder's Justice League, but I watched Catwoman, and Joker, and I watched all of them. Yeah.
That's impressive. Do you know what's funny is
I had time.
Yeah. I was going to say, what's funny is that's exactly when I did a full Batman rewatch, is when Harley was born.
Yeah.
I was only off for 3 weeks. But so I didn't watch Catwoman or Joker, but I at least watched the main line of Batman films. I think I stopped with Justice League. I don't even know if there was time to do Zack Snyder's Justice League. I might have stopped at BVS, but yeah, that was the last time I had done it. I started with Batman the movie from 66 and went through at least BVS. And so, yeah,
it's fun.
It's yeah. When you're sitting there rocking a newborn, and you don't get to go anywhere, it's a good way to pass the time.
Yeah, and look, I will mention too, while I think of it, with the Icons Unearthed, they did. I think I mentioned it previously, but they did one on Bond, like last year or a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah.
And I watched that because it was on a streaming service over here. I just stumbled across it and checked it out. There was a series of makings of the Bond films when they were first released on DVD in like 1999, I think it was. And they did a really good look back on all of them, up to License to Kill. So they sort of stopped at the 1989 one. With Icons Unearthed, they didn't really, unlike the Batman one, to me, they didn't really give me anything that I didn't already have. They spoke to a lot of the same people that were still alive. They played a lot of old interview footage of the people who had passed. So it wasn't really anything new. So yeah, when I went into this one, I mean, obviously from the films, from when Brosnan took over and into the Craig era, it was all new stuff, which I latched onto. But yeah, for the older stuff, I did go into this thinking, well, it'll just be an updated version of what I've already got, but cool, it's Batman, I'll watch it. But yeah, that it genuinely surprised me is I got new stuff out of every episode, and some stuff was just like, oh wow, holy shit, like I didn't know that, like the Nicholson cast jackets as just an example. Like I'd never heard that story, how he got everyone
exactly
the Joker jackets made, like, and then the bloody producers
same
tried to renege on it, and not pay.
Yeah. I loved that story, and he was like, "Say no more." What? No sooner said than done.
Yeah,
and he bought them, and when they talked about it, they showed an image of the jacket, and I never realized those jackets were purple.
Oh, really?
Because in the movie, I swear they look black.
I knew they were purple, but yeah, they do have that black tinge to it.
Yeah, to me, I thought they always looked black. But my point is when they talked about it, I was like, God, that is a great jacket. And I've got the hat. And so I went online, and someone on eBay does sell the jacket for surprisingly not too much. So I have not ordered it yet, but I think it's only a matter of time, because when I saw that picture, I was like, yeah, I need one of those to go with the hat. It's just too cool.
That is pretty cool.
But yeah, I love that. And we talked about with episode 1, Sean Young. In episode 2, the Sean Young stuff got even spicier. And again, I feel like it's an interesting combination of I have respect for her, and also I understand why she rubbed a lot of people the wrong way,
Yep.
Like, I respect that she just kind of owns who she is and goes for it. And I think that there's something to be said for that. But like, she just called out that one executive. Oh my God. Like, she called out that one guy, and what'd she call him? Like an untalented little man or something like that.
Oh God, what was his name too? Because he was on it.
Yeah, I want to say it was Mark something, Mark Canton,
with his untucked shirt.
Yeah, but
and you can tell he was holding back whenever they mentioned her. He just didn't say. The less said, the better.
I love that. Yeah, he did not take the bait. You could tell. Like, they told him what she said, and he just said, "I have nothing bad to say about her."
Yep.
And just left it at that.
No, it was pretty cool. And actually,
which is smart. Just
one thing that jumped out to me too that I had no idea is we nearly lost Bob Ringwood as the costume designer over the friggin' white dress that Kim Basinger wears. Like, he was not going. He was going to walk away from the film and not put his name on it because of that dress. That's insane.
I never heard that either.
No.
And what's crazy is I've always noticed the credit at the beginning of the movie where it says, Miss Basinger's gowns by so-and-so. And I just was like, I just figured, oh, well, obviously
some
Bob
fashion label or something, like, yeah.
Right, exactly. Bob Ringwood is doing all of the, the Batman and the Joker and all that stuff. And they brought in someone female for Kim Basinger. I never thought twice about it. I thought, oh, that may just make sense. I didn't know it was drama that Kim Basinger was like, no, I'm bringing in my person to dress me. And that Ringwood really was offended by it. That was really interesting.
Because I think from what I took away from it is if it had been Ringwood, we would have seen her more like what she is in the scene where she's taking the photos at City Hall, sort of like the black with the black beret and things like that. I think she would have had more that aesthetic. But look, I mean, yes, the white ball gown is ridiculous. It was ridiculous in 1989, but like the blue dress that she wears, I mean, that's iconic. When I think of Vicky Vale, she's always in that blue dress at is it the Flugenheim museum? Like,
yeah.
Nothing wrong with that one. I mean, really, the issue is the big white one. I think everything else looks fine.
Right.
It suits the environment. I never thought she looked, bad.
Mm-hmm.
But interesting.
Well, also, I mean, I never thought twice about the white one either, but I just was like, I don't know. It was 1989. I don't know. Didn't. No, listen, I'm not the one to give critiques on gowns. I'm not.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That was Prince. Yes, I remember that.
Oh, do you? I'd say that was news to me.
I love the fact that when she joined the cast, everyone wanted to get with Kim Basinger. Even Michael Keaton, they said.
Look at her.
Yeah. And I love that of everyone. And she started like dating the producer, right? John Peters. And they were living together, and like Keaton had a crush on her, and everyone had a crush on Kim Basinger. And the one who snagged her, Prince. That's amazing.
Which, I mean, Prince to me has always seemed very, is it androgynous? Is that the right word?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, good for him, I guess. Like, yeah.
I mean, he was a very interesting. I mean, I think he was a genius, but he was a very interesting contradiction in that you're right. He was very androgynous, and yet he was also a sex symbol, and women loved him. And he, and he was a very small man too, is my recollection. He was very little.
You say like a rock god, like sex on legs from that time period. My mind goes to like a Michael Hutchence or something like that, and where it's just like, well, yeah, I can see that, but I've never ever got that vibe from Prince. And then that he snagged Kim Basinger off the back of Batman '89 is like, holy hell, that's wow.
Yeah, good for him. I love that. I think that's amazing. Especially because it sounds like John Peters wasn't the nicest guy in the world anyway. So maybe
No,
Basinger traded up.
probably.
Yeah, but you're right. All that was all pretty interesting and pretty fun. Try to think of other things. You know, it's funny. The Batman Returns one doesn't jump out a lot, other than the stuff we already know, which is
Yeah.
it was dark, it was weird, so there was backlash and all that. We know all that.
And they really went into the
But
Sean Young Catwoman thing as well. Like, I don't honestly,
yeah,
I don't think
because
I'd
she
ever
was
seen.
there.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen the footage of her in the costume before. When she was on that talk
Yeah,
show, I'd never seen that. Like, it gets mentioned in the '05 doco, but very very briefly. But yeah, they kind of went all in on it with this one, which is so bizarre. Like, I always have understood her feeling owed. Um,
yeah.
but that's not how you can never feel that in any job. You can feel that you're owed something and it just doesn't pan out that way. Um,
Right.
but yeah, like, I mean, if you want to jump forward to the Schumacher stuff,
Well,
the
I want to talk about the Catwoman Sean Young thing real quick, because I remember when she went on Joan Rivers dressed as Catwoman. I remember that from back then.
oh wow, okay,
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, does that mean she's gonna play Catwoman?" Because I was still pretty young. I didn't know all the context. I didn't know why it was happening. All I know is she showed up on Joan Rivers dressed as Catwoman and was talking to the camera, and I was like, "Oh, how cool is she gonna be Catwoman?" Obviously, years later, you find out why, but it's one of those things where I I do think that they should have at least shown her the respect of taking the meeting, letting her audition. I
yes,
don't think that would have been out of line. I think that would have been nice. Um, and I also kind of appreciate why she did what she did, which is she's like, you know what, like I'm gonna swing big. I want to do this. I want them to know, and so I'm gonna take a big swing. And 9 times out of 10, when you do something like that and you don't play by the rules, it backfires, which is what happened to poor Sean Young. But I understand her being like, no, I'm going to take the risk. I'm putting it all out there. And I kind of respect that she did, even though it didn't work out.
yeah, and it had the reverse effect. And I mean, let's be honest, I don't think her career ever really recovered after that. I mean, she had Ace Ventura, but what else can you remember that she's been in after that? And that's 30 years ago this year.
Yeah, that's true. And I think she even acknowledged that, right? As like I did this thing. I was putting it all out there, but it did backfire. And I think she even said that, her career was never the same.
Mm, yeah. I mean, she was always a good actress. I never saw her in a million things, but like Stripes and Ace Ventura, I always really liked her. I thought she was great.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Batman Returns. Again, there was nothing else that really jumped out. They talked about Annette Bening and her getting pregnant, which we knew, and then how Michelle Pfeiffer just freaking blew everyone away, which also we knew. But you said you wanted to jump to the Schumacher stuff.
Oh, it's just yeah. If you didn't have anything else to talk about the return side of things, but the main DP we've never heard from before, from the Schumacher films, and he was an interesting guy who didn't
Oh
hold anything
yeah,
back.
so he's the one who hated Schumacher,
Yeah, they
which
really
is
didn't like each other.
crazy, and the fact that he was like, um, he basically was like he threw Schumacher under the bus of being like he didn't know what we were doing day to day. You'd think the director would have the shot list. You'd think the director would know what we're doing, and I'm the one who had to do it. And I was like, wow, like that was shocking.
And like he seemed a bit predatory on set as well.
Schumacher?
Yeah,
Yeah, yep. Oh yeah, because it was the costume designer, right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
costume designer said that there was like some uncomfortableness, which is disappointing. Yeah.
yeah. And if you see photos from him back then too, like he was very kind of glam, I guess, for
Yeah.
lack of a better term, and I think Joel might have liked that. Um, but yeah, like, and also like I knew there was issues with Val, but I didn't realize how much of a turd he was on set
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they did go into that and but again, it was one of the worst kept secrets in Hollywood of Val Kilmer. I mean, what amazed me is that when they hired him, they already knew he was hard to work with, and he had to promise he was going to behave for them to hire him. That was really surprising, because I thought it was one of those things where they hired him and they're like, oh, what did we get ourselves into? But they knew. And it was like, apparently the agent had to go, nope, Val will be on his best behavior. You won't have to worry about it. And then, of course, they had to worry about it.
Yeah. And look, I know he's copped flack over the years and everything. And look, Keaton is Keaton. He's the, the OG and everything. But if he wasn't going to come back, I mean, who else? I think Kilmer was a really good choice for the role in, circa 94, 95. And it's just a shame that is what happened, and he didn't come to play all that well. And, I've often thought, would that second movie have been any different and or better with him there? But it seemed like it may have been worse, because the cast and the crew would have just had the absolute shits with him.
Yeah. And it is a bummer, because you are right. And I've always said this. I'm like, I don't think the casting is the problem with either Schumacher film.
No.
It's what they chose to do and what they were directed to do. That's, I think, the really problem. And I think with Val, like, the issue with Tommy Lee and Jim is they were, cranked to an 11, and Val was the exact opposite, where he was like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I'm getting paid and it's going to help my career. So I'm just going to do it. And it's like, they were like opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, like, and again, everyone in the cast was like, yeah, like Val Kilmer wasn't great to work with. And someone did say of like, well, and the suit was tough to wear and it was a pain. And it's like, yeah, but every Batman actor hated wearing the suit. Yeah. So it's not really an excuse, because and they improved the suit from 89 to Returns to Forever. And so you can't really go, well, the suit sucked, so that's why he was a dick. Like, he just was famous for that, right? Like, it was just the way it was. But again, now that we're so far removed, everybody was pretty honest about it.
And it makes more sense to me too, looking back at 95 for the press tour and things like that. Like, there was a lot of Schumacher and a lot of Chris O'Donnell. But there, and I'm, even as an 11-year-old, I'm thinking, like, why isn't Batman here? Like, why isn't he on the talk show and doing interviews and things like that? And I guess it makes sense, because they wouldn't have wanted him there.
Right. Exactly. And I think, didn't they even say like Jim Carrey was a dream to work with, which makes sense. Like, everything that you've heard about him, and as crazy as he could be, by all accounts, he's just a good dude, and that was nice to hear. And I think they talked about that, which was really fun.
Yeah. Peek behind the curtain. We did have to pause for a second there a few minutes ago, because Harley was crying in the background and stuff, and you wanted to see if she was okay. I did stick my head out and say to Henry, I'm like, is there any chance you can just walk a little bit quieter past Daddy's office? And as you can hear, nope.
No,
it did not work at all.
2 and 3-year-olds, they're so uncooperative when it comes to podcasting. They just don't understand.
So again, I do apologize for that, but I have tried to get him to stop thumping past the door.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
But and then they didn't, the DP, he didn't want to come back to do Batman and Robin, but then they kind of had to get him back, and
because like something fell through and he needed the job, so he's like, I guess I'll do it.
But I think, from what I can gather, Joel was even less involved in that one.
Oh, because Batman and Robin was like pretty famous with this production of like, it was a really accelerated production, and so they were shooting simultaneously on multiple stages all at once. And that was like the famous quote from Chris O'Donnell of being like, I didn't meet Arnold Schwarzenegger
until
I
the
didn't
press
even get
tour.
to meet him. Until the premiere. And so it's the same thing where it's like Joel was shooting on one stage and the DP was shooting on another, and they probably had another second assistant director shooting on a third. And again, that was just the nature of that film, because they were just in such a rush to churn it out, that's how they had to do it. And I think that, didn't they say something about Arnold about being like, Well, he made $25 million for 6 weeks of work. Who wouldn't say yes to that?
Yeah, and you said before about how the casting of those films, was never the issue. I was nearly going to say, well, maybe Arnold, but again, I can't really argue because at that point, that's what those movies had become. Like, who's going to be like Batman 66 all over again? Who's going to be the villains, and who is the biggest named actors and actresses we can get? And
Mm-hmm.
particularly off the back of Batman Forever, where Tommy Lee Jones hadn't long won an Oscar, and Jim Carrey was peak Jim Carrey at the time. You
He
kind
had
of had to
three number one movies in 1994, I think it was.
yeah.
Like one after the other, which was like, yeah, I mean, of course. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but please continue.
Yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what I was going to say. Is he's not who I would have cast.
No.
However, there is a version of an Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze that would work.
Absolutely.
Think about the Terminator Arnold, but Mr. Freeze. Where, not the cackling pun spewing Mr. Freeze, but the cold, calculated, doesn't say much Mr. Freeze, and it could have worked. Mm-hmm. That's just not what they wanted to do.
No, look, I absolutely agree. But again, it makes sense for that time. And I mean, Uma Thurman was just off the back of Pulp Fiction, which was huge, like, and Alicia Silverstone with Clueless, and it all makes sense. Oh, the Alicia Silverstone stuff.
That broke my heart. That makes me so sad, especially now.
We'd heard about it.
Yeah.
Never did that. We'd never seen the photo.
I never knew about the drawing.
Really? I'd heard that somewhere. I can't remember where, but I definitely knew that.
I don't think I had heard that, but like, I didn't realize it was a thing that made its way to the set. Like, I just didn't know that. And it's so sad. And especially because like, she does look great. It's just, they thought she was going to be tiny, and she was a little less tiny. But the fact that like it became a thing and it made its way to her, like, that's so uncool.
And it was kind of like it was a meme before a meme. And then but then they had the guy who drew it, like, trying to justify it. And it's like, yeah, dude, that just doesn't look. Maybe in 96 you could get away with it, but even then, like, it's wrong. You shouldn't have done it, and you're trying to justify it just makes you look like a bigger dick.
Yeah, that's just you watched this episode before I did, and you sent a message and I forget what his job was. Was he a designer, I think, maybe?
I think so.
Because he was an artist.
Yeah.
And you said, oh, well, he was a flog, I think was the term you used.
but he was coming across like that before he even mentioned Silverstone stuff. He just looked like a complete tool.
Yeah, he was. He was kind of smarmy and not super nice. And yeah, like, didn't get a great vibe from him. And then you find out he's the one who drew this shitty photo of Alicia Silverstone trying to squeeze into the outfit. And you're like, yeah, you're right. He is a flog.
But yeah, that bit was harsh. Yeah, poor thing.
Yeah, I felt bad about that. So, but yep, that was all very interesting. And then they had to be efficient about getting to Nolan. But even so, I do think that the time between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins is fascinating because of all of the false starts and all the different things they tried, and just trying to figure out what they were going to do and how they were going to do it. And they did it pretty quickly, but they did hit on some of it, which I appreciated, because again, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And then landing on Nolan, where I think, didn't they say that his wife was like, oh, he wouldn't want to do Batman.
Yes.
and said no. And then she told him, and he's like, no, I'd like to do that. And they're like, oh, okay, great.
Which is funny when you look at remove the Dark Knight trilogy from his body of work. And even knowing that he did the Dark Knight trilogy, you're still kind of like, oh, that guy doing Batman, really? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. And it's crazy is that, what I thought was also really interesting is when you look at what he made before Batman Begins, it was Insomnia and Memento, really, right? And Following, I think it was it. And so he really did have like a trial by fire of going from Insomnia as his quote unquote biggest movie to Batman Begins. and really had to learn how to put together this giant tent pole. And of course, he did it and he soared. And then, with the whole trilogy, just redefined the character and the genre all over again, which is just talk about just like lightning in a bottle of seeing something in the guy who did Insomnia to do Batman and then have it work out the way it did.
But it's funny, and I never really thought about it. There are parallels, I think, to him at his stage in his career, going back to 89, and Burton at his stage in the career. He'd had like two, quite successful movies, but Tim Burton wasn't the Tim Burton he became in 89, and Nolan wasn't Nolan yet. And the difference between them is Burton, I think, it was very much, he was sort of being controlled by committee with that movie. I mean, obviously a lot of it had his personal touches and stuff, but Nolan came in and kind of ruled with an iron fist with a lot of stuff, where he had balls, like wanting to shoot things where he wanted to shoot them, and not taking no for an answer, and wanting these grand, these, like the stuff in, was it Greenland where they shot on the glacier?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could have green screened that. I mean, you could have, and it probably would have saved the studio a lot of money. But this director was just like, no, and they had to like physically climb mountains and stuff to get there and do it. And it's like, man, you had some balls, because you weren't the Nolan that is now, one of the greatest
right now
in this generation.
Right now he gets carte blanche, but exactly to stick to his guns at that moment in his career when he was given this budget
with a property that was make or break for Warner Brothers too. Like, full credit to them for the taking into account all the mistakes they've made with the franchise since then. Thank God they listened to Nolan and let him do what he wanted to do, and didn't interfere. And, we got, well, my favorite Batman movie of all time, Batman Begins. But yeah, it was just, I'm looking at it thinking, wow, like they really had faith in you, or they saw something, because they didn't give Burton that same,
Yeah.
And when they did, you got Batman Returns, and we know the story from there. So it was a ballsy move by Nolan, and I'm just glad that it all worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about it, and that was one of the neat things about this, is they talked to the stunt coordinator and the effects people, and how they were like, he insisted on doing as much of it in camera, as much of it as real and practical as you can. The only time we couldn't do it practically is if it was literally impossible, because there were times when we tried to push him into doing it with effects, and even then he pushed back and it's like, no, make it work, figure it out. And like talking about the semi flip in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
And they were like, well, if we made it smaller and we could do this, then it would be a little easier. He's like, no, that won't be as cool. and they were like, oh, okay, I guess we'll figure it out. Or how hard they had to work to make the tumbler work
in general.
Work the way it's supposed to work in the movie. And that is one of the things I've always loved about the tumbler, is the fact that like it's really doing that stuff, and you can tell.
Yes.
As opposed to if it was in CG or whatever and whatnot. So the way he really pushed that, and that was a lot of the threads that we followed in those episodes of them being like, okay, we've designed the tumbler, but it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So we have to keep trying to do it. Or the Bat Pod, about like, it looks cool, but nobody can drive the damn thing. They're like, it's almost impossible to drive, except they found one amazingly talented motorcycle driver who could work it the way no one else could. And it's like, well, thank God, because now that's our guy.
Yeah. And I never knew the truck driver in The Dark Knight, with the cowboy hat, is actually the stunt driver who did the flip.
Yeah. Same.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Yeah. And it was cool too that they had the actress who played Ramirez, Monique something.
Yeah.
Her name. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Like, hearing from her, like, that's someone who we've never heard from, and she brought a really unique perspective of things. And just quietly, she's aged very, very well too.
Yeah, indeed. Well, when I saw her, I was like, "Oh my God, Ramirez!" Because you're right, we haven't seen her. I don't know what she's been up to. I don't know, like if she's working at stuff I haven't seen. And it was nice. You're right. It was nice to see her again and get her perspective. It was cool.
And like hearing from Heath's makeup artist and some people who were close to him, probably closer to him than the people we usually hear from. When it came to that sort of, when it came to hearing about his death, like, I mean, how his makeup artists and stuff, they would have spent hours and hours and hours together, and they came up with the look together and things like that. And hearing the impact that it had on people like him and stuff was again a unique perspective that we've never had before.
Well, and that was really cool about talking about how he and Heath came up with the look and how he started having Heath do the makeup himself because the Joker would be doing it himself, which means it would change from day to day because he'd have to put it on every day. And so it would shift. It would be different. Now, I thought that was actually really interesting.
And it would lead to having the paint under the fingernails and things like that.
Yeah. Which I thought was very cool. And I also appreciated that, like, they sort of debunked this thing that had been out there where it was like, oh, the reason Heath died is because the Joker put him in such a dark place that he had no other recourse but to turn to drugs and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, and I like that everyone was like, that is false. He was Heath on set. He was having a great time. It was different when the cameras rolled. He was not this method guy who was, pulled into this depressed state because he was playing the Joker. None of that's true. Like, the two things are not related. And I actually appreciated everyone being very candid about that.
Yeah. And I think it was the makeup artist as well who said that, he's an alcoholic. And he and Heath would talk about, trying to conquer their demons and their addictions and things like that. So it was something that was there, but they're not mutually exclusive. So.
Right. Yeah. So I thought that was actually really interesting. Another one that I thought was interesting was when they talked about the blowing up of the hospital.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
And again, just watching like them set up the hospital and talking about it, I was like, I just want to watch The Dark Knight right now. It just makes me want to watch the movie. But like for the longest time, there was this, again, it was sort of an urban legend of like it not blowing up completely was an improv and it was supposed to blow up. And so him looking at it and pretending to fiddle with it, like that was all improv. And it was the stunt coordinator who was like, no, he couldn't be outside for the full explosion because it wasn't safe. And so we did this thing where it delayed and it didn't fully blow up until he got into the bus. And it's like, oh, that's very interesting. It's the first time I've heard that version.
Glass and stuff like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard that version of that story because, again, haven't we always heard, oh, that was an improv?
Well, yeah, I thought, honestly, that was fact that Heath just improv'd it because he knew he only had one take to do it. And I mean, it's a cool story. I kind of wish it was true, but what actually happened makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Right.
And it's actually the stunt coordinator, Chris Corbold, who's he's done a heap of stuff on Bond too. He's a legend.
Wow.
Pulling him into the bus. Like, I never knew that either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's the old quote is don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
and it's kind of that, as I feel like everyone's like, well, the improv story is a little cooler, so let's just leave it.
That was like a mandate from Nolan too. Was like, no, we're doing that for real. Like,
yeah,
who does, like, who goes to a stunt coordinator and was like, we need to find a building to blow up?
Right?
What the hell?
Yeah. I will say, and not to be a huge downer, I had forgotten about the stunt person who passed away during the rehearsals.
I'd never forgotten about it, but I didn't realize how it happened.
Me either. And that was what I was getting at. Is I was
terrible.
Heath's death was like cast such a large shadow over the whole thing that it was so easy to overlook this stunt person's death. And when it was brought up, I was like, oh my God, that's right. And my heart broke for the stunt coordinator when they asked him, and he's like, I don't even want to go there. I can't.
Yes.
I can't.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. I completely get it. But then, to hear what actually happened, it was like, it felt so innocuous.
Yeah, he was just driving beside the tumbler, filming stuff on his phone.
Yeah, and it just the guy hit the brake just the right way, and it snapped his neck. I'm like, that is just, that's heartbreaking because that's like a 1 in a billion thing.
He wasn't doing anything dangerous.
Yeah, he wasn't doing anything
the
dangerous.
irony, like, yeah, because I don't know why. I don't know if I'd heard this or if it was just in my head canon or something. I thought it was something to do with the stunt where the SWAT team, get flung off the building and dangle down. For some reason, I thought it had something to do with that, like a rehearsal for that, I don't know why I thought that, but that's what I always thought happened. But to hear what actually happened is just, for a guy who risked his life, as for his job, for our entertainment, but then to go the way that he did is, like I said, it's a real tragic irony. It's really terrible.
Yeah, it was. So that was like a kind of a sobering reminder. Something I forgot to mention earlier, though, that I thought was kind of fun is they talked to Chuck Dixon, who created Bane.
Yes.
And during the Batman and Robin segment, he's like, it was not our Bane. It looks like our Bane, but it was not our Bane. And then it was nice to kind of follow that up with Dark Knight Rises and him going, I mean, finally, Bane gets redeemed on the big screen and it made us so happy. So that was an unexpected interview, but I thought was really cool, especially when it came to our two cinematic Banes.
Wasn't he still like a bit perplexed about like the portrayal of Bane in Rises? Like,
I'd have to watch it again. I can't remember.
I think he was a little bit kind of about the look and the voice, but in terms of the characterization, I think he was happy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, with Rises, they didn't get too, I mean, that one I felt like so much of the Nolan era was focused on the Dark Knight, and rightfully so, I get it. That Rises, they did cover it, but I felt like it was pretty efficient the way they did it. But here's something I thought was interesting. And I even will challenge them on this, and maybe someone will correct me, and that's fine. But they talked about how they shot in Chicago for Begins and especially for The Dark Knight, right? And then for Rises, they talked about, they're like, well, we've already shot all over Chicago. We need to go somewhere else. So they went to New York. And I'm like, I remember them shooting heavily in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh for Rises.
Yes, same.
Okay, so like maybe they did do some shooting in New York, but I swear the majority of the Gotham stuff was done in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I know they went to New York, obviously, for Wall Street.
Right. So, okay, well, maybe it's all three, but they were like, let's not mention Pennsylvania because it's just a better story if it's just New York. But I just thought that was funny.
Which, speaking of the Wall Street stuff, I completely forgot. Glenn Powell's in that movie.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that. Yeah, Glenn Powell,
megastar. Like, he was this dick, trade guy for like 3-4 minutes in The Dark Knight Rises, and it's like, wow, he's now this huge star who is probably going to become a superhero at some point, I would assume.
DC, sign him now.
Yes, absolutely.
Before it's too late. I do remember that because he was on Scream Queens. Did you watch Scream Queens?
I did watch the first season. Oh shit, I forgot he was in that. Yeah.
He was so good in that.
Yes.
And I'm not going to pretend, I knew he'd be a big star, but he was so good in that. And I'm like, I should hate this guy. And I love this guy. He's so good. And I just remember him going, oh yeah. And he has those couple lines in Dark Knight Rises.
Wow. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. So anyway, they go through that Rises, and then they're like, and the future of the character is bright, and you're right, that's when they should have been like, and then he was portrayed by Ben Affleck, and then he was portrayed by Robert Pattinson. And I do wonder if, as is tradition for Batman and superheroes, they're leaving this open for a sequel. But maybe. But again, like, you're not going to get the interesting stories until after 20 years. That's the statute of limitations on people telling the truth is 20 years. So it might be a while before we get, a follow-up where we get this same sort of treatment for the Snyder era and then now the Reeves era.
Yeah. I do want to give a shout out to Robert Wall for narrating it. He was great. Yeah. He should do more voiceover stuff if he doesn't, because he was I really liked hearing him tell the story. It was really good.
I agree. I thought he was great, and I really loved his stories from '89.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great too, because he also is someone who is very honest and, kind of cuts through the crap. And it was really fun to hear his versions of events. And I also liked that they talked about how Billy D didn't, he took the job of Harvey Dent so he could play Two-Face.
Mm-hmm.
And then that didn't happen. That was one thing they did talk about with Batman Returns, is they talked about how they were like, get rid of everything from the first movie. No, no Harvey Dent, and no this and no that and no the other thing, which we've always said, like, that's the one thing of Returns, which I thought was a mistake, but that's neither here nor there.
I still like the original Sam Hamm script way better than what we got. It's good. I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if that had been the movie.
Yeah. But and they talked to Billy D, and he's like, you know what? Like, he's always taken it pretty well, of being like, yeah, it's just the way it goes, and it's a shame. But I liked that they did wrap it up at the very end of going, and guess what?
Yeah.
Billy D finally got to play Two-Face in the Lego Batman movie.
No, that was nice.
So that was nice too. I appreciated that. And so, everyone kind of gave their closing thoughts, and, lots of Michael Uslan talking about like how, he worked for a decade to get it made, and gosh, he's, now his name is on every Batman movie, animated or live action, theatrical or straight to video, since 1989. So, kudos to him for putting his stake in that ground when he did, because he found just the right window when no one thought it would matter. And yep, look at it now.
Look, yeah, I have to give you some credit. I've never disliked the guy, but I'm like, I think we mentioned in the first episode, it's just like, stop shitting on the 60s show, man. Like, like the reason you had so many fans turn out for 89 in the first place is because, and the reason why there's fans now, it's a huge part of that is the 60s show. It's the reason why I'm talking to you. It was my introduction to the character. It might not have been for you, I get that, but ease up a bit, mate. Like, just change the record.
Well, and I do wonder, like, it's funny because he has been vocally supportive of the Schumacher films, and
his name's on them.
and how are those any better or worse than the 60s show?
Yeah,
I mean, like they're very much cut from the same cloth. So, I get it. Like at the time where it would be like, this is the only way people think about Batman, and I don't want people to see my hero this way. I completely get that.
I get that. Now, yeah.
But now, so many years later, and we've had so many versions, from the really, really light to the really, really dark, and everything in between, we've all learned that there is room for all. And I hope he feels the same way.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah. Well, as we said, I am really glad I watched this. I really had a great time with it because, again, we're Batman fans. I loved reliving the build up to each of these movies and these franchises. And so kudos to Vice TV and the producers and everyone who participated in this. I had a blast watching it, and I know a lot of other Bat fans out there did too. So yeah, it was really good. And for anybody listening, if you haven't watched it yet, we've just touched on some of the stories that were told. We can't remember them all, and frankly, like, who wants to hear us just recite everything that they do in the show? There's a reason there's a show. But it's absolutely worth your time. And like I said, hopefully now, in a few months or something, after it's kind of, it's dipped or whatever, they'll make it available for purchase or something. Cause I would purchase it and I would revisit it the same way I do a lot of the other Batman documentaries. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Anything else to add on Icons Unearthed, Batman?
If you can watch it, watch it.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. All I can say, because it's really worth your time.
Agreed. So it was a lot of fun. So our quick little things that stick it out in our head from watching all 6 episodes. So something else we watched was the next episode of The Batman. So let's do that. Let's talk about season 3, episode 3 of The Batman. you did miss Batgirl Begins, Brendan, to the point where you didn't even know we covered it because it was on the Teen Titans.
I had to double check, yeah.
That's fine. I get it. So yeah, we are on season 3, episode 3, A Dark Night to Remember. This one aired on October 1st of 2005. It was written by Joseph Kerr and directed by Brandon Vietti. Now, we've heard the name Joseph Kerr before. And in short, it's Joe Kerr.
Kerr, yeah.
So is that like an alias for someone we should know? Or is that literally just a happy coincidence?
I honestly don't know.
I'm going to have to do some Googling because I am very curious. Because, like, what are the odds that someone who writes for a Batman show, his name is Joe Kerr?
I mean, it's pretty cool.
It is cool. It feels like an alias. Like, is it Paul Dini? But he's like, I don't want to like bring baggage from the animated series, so I'm just gonna go with something else. I don't know. Anyway, it's if anyone knows, is there really a Joseph Kerr? Because if so, that's cool.
Well, a friend of mine yesterday was telling me that their doctor that they had before she moved, her surname was Batman, like Batman, and apparently she had Batman stuff in her office. So yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, I mean, he's got an IMDb page. He wrote for the Batman, Transformers Prime, so it's a lot of animation writing. So, I mean, I guess it's him.
Yeah.
I guess that's really his name. He wrote for the Extreme Ghostbusters.
Nice.
So, okay, I guess that's really his name.
Who Reno Romano does a voice on as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Joseph Kerr. I don't mean to doubt your existence. I just had to ask. I'm sorry. Anyway, so A Dark Night to Remember. Batgirl has only just joined the fight, and already she's going to end up on her own. So there's a big heist with the Penguin and the Kabuki twins. They've stolen a crystal penguin, and they attempt to escape. I like that the Penguin has a penguin painted speedboat.
I knew you'd like that.
I do.
It's a duck painted speedboat.
No, it was a penguin. It was like painted like a penguin.
I thought. Oh yeah, no, actually, no, you're right. You're right. Sorry.
It reminded me of like the sub from Batman the movie.
Yes, actually, no, that's true. I just had duck on the brain.
Well, there's a part later on where it's also not a duck, but it kind of resembles a duck.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? The big giant cuckoo clock. Yeah. So anyway, the penguin's escaping in his penguin painted boat, and Batman follows, but leaves Batgirl to watch over the Kabuki twins. And I also say, and I think I've said it before, but I really love this version of the Batboat. I think it is so cool looking.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But he escapes and Batman follows, and it's a close call. Batman sinks to the bottom. He hits his head. The Batboat does pull him up and rescue him, but the next day he wakes up and he's forgotten he's Batman.
That old chestnut.
That old thing. And just at the same time, they go to this big awards, and Barbara Gordon is there, and Jim Gordon is there, and Barbara's looking at Bruce Wayne being like, Bruce Wayne. He looks like Batman. He's got the money. It makes perfect sense. He's Batman. And as it turns out, the Penguin crashes this party, and Bruce has forgotten he's Batman. So he's full-on coward, chickening out, and Barbara's like, I can't believe I thought this guy was Batman. What a lame-o. And so Bruce even feels bad for being such a chicken. He gets kidnapped. Batgirl has to save him. And so Alfred has to show him that he is Batman, and Batgirl's kind of on her own. What's funny is, and you'll hear this when you go back and listen, as we talked about Batgirl Begins, Jamie's like, I really liked it. Sorry, spoilers. He liked it. He goes, but I just hope that, over the season, Batgirl really starts to like learn and train and everything, because I just hope she doesn't have to like protect Gotham without Batman right away, because she's not ready. And I was like, well, just wait till the next episode.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what happens. But Alfred shows Bruce that he's Batman. Bruce doesn't really believe it, but he tries to remember. And this all comes to a head when Batgirl gets captured by the Penguin, and he's going to execute her at the top of this giant cuckoo clock, which is very cool, by the way. It's like a salmon factory or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, some sort of seafood factory. And so he knows that he's got to save her. And once he does, it all snaps in. He's Batman again. They take down the Joker. Batgirl survives. And Batgirl's like, I just can't believe I thought you were Bruce Wayne. What a lame. He's got to grow a spine, something like that.
Yeah.
And Batman's like, well, how do you even know I'm a he? Or something to that effect. And that's it. That is a Dark Knight.
Did she just assume his gender?
See, dude, you don't know.
It is Batman, I guess. Like
it's in the name. It's true. It is in the name. I don't feel as bad about that. I think it's okay. So anyway, that is a Dark Knight to remember. Before we get to that, though, I want to get your take on the new theme song because me and Jamie talked about it last time, but I don't know where you stand.
I was going to say, are you going to change the intro to the to when we talk about the Batman now? Or
I did last time.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did because we talked about the theme song and I was like, well, people are going to actually want to hear it if they're not watching along. Yeah. So I did change it. I guess I will. It feels right. But I prefer the Edge version, so I kind of want to just use that.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, the Edge version's great. I don't know. It's kind of a weird take on the 60s song, which I still like. I don't think fits the style of the show, but I mean, you can tell they've definitely gone for with the start of season 3, they have kind of gone for a tonal change, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that was just part of it. But I mean, there's still hints of the Edge score and like it's the Edge theme in the score of the episodes as well. So it hasn't fully gone away, but I mean, yeah, unlike everyone, it's just kind of like, man, you had a theme song by the Edge. Like, why would you take that away for this kind of like, I don't want to use the term like schlocky, but I can't think of anything better. It's not great. That's the one thing that does dip in quality when you get to season 3 is this theme song. So yeah,
I agree. I definitely prefer the original theme song, but this one I hate less than I remember. Because when it first happened, the first time I watched this series, I was like, "What the heck did they do?" So at least this time I knew it was coming, and it's fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, I didn't know where you stood on it.
Yeah, I'm the same as everyone else. Like, should have stuck with the Edge.
Yep, agreed. And then, what do you think of the episode, A Dark Knight to Remember?
Well, I thought it was really good. Like, I hinted at it before. Like, you know, there's some tropes in there that we've seen before, like Batman with amnesia, and like I think the animated series did one like that, didn't they? Or he forgot who he was in general. It wasn't just Batman, but anyway,
it's a deleted song from Batman Forever.
No, that's true too. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something we have seen or not seen, as it were, with Batman Forever before. But I think they do it really well. It works for the story. It makes Barbara step up after her introduction. I mean, the way Bruce gets his memory back is, again, it's kind of another trope where Alfred just like piffs a batarang at him in the hopes that... Mm-hmm. I've always found that funny in shows and comics and stuff when they do that. It's like, dude, what if they don't remember? What if they genuinely don't remember and you just maim the poor son of a bitch? Like,
there's a deleted scene from Justice League where Ezra Miller got the batarang in the middle of the forehead and there was no Flash on their team.
Yeah, right. But no, the Penguin's sort of one of my least favorite villains in this series. I mean, I'm not a huge Penguin fan anyway. But again, he didn't really annoy me in this episode. They used him well. Yeah, I really liked the whole vibe of the episode and Bruce finding his way back to being Batman, and I really liked the relationship between he and Barbara. Like, I'm because I did watch Batgirl Begins this morning before I watched this new one to sort of catch up. I just really like this version of Barbara, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I think she's good. She might be my favorite. Yeah, I just love the relationship with her and Jim, and I really liked, to go back, I really liked the tying her into Poison Ivy, like their friendship and everything, but then her seeing the difference between right and wrong and, trying to do the right thing, but not being an extremist about it. And she's got that conscience there, and they really focus on the fact that she's got this gymnastic ability. Like, could be an Olympian, could get the gold medal type thing. So it's not just like she's just whacking on this costume and all of a sudden she can fight crime. Yeah. So I think she's a really, really good take on the character. But yeah, the episode was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, tropes aside, I think they, I didn't roll my eyes when it was kind of like, oh, it's Bruce with amnesia again. It was like, oh, okay, they're doing this, and what they did with it worked. I think they did it really well.
Yeah. I think I pretty much see eye to eye with you on this. I think it was a good episode. I really enjoyed it. You're right. I think some of the story points were, if not a little cliche, it just felt a little early to do this. It felt a little early for Barbara to immediately be like, Bruce Wayne must be Batman. Like, that feels like, yes, you want to tell that story, but really in her third episode. And the same thing with her having to fend for herself without Batman's help. So I think it would have probably worked better later after Batgirl and Batman had a more established relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But that aside, I still was very entertained by it. I think I do like this Penguin. You're right. Like, when you compare him to some of the other villains, he's never been my number one favorite, but I do like him in this. And I liked him in this episode. I appreciated him being a legitimate threat. And wanting to execute Batgirl, and also going on TV and bragging, I already took care of Batman, and tonight I'm taking care of Batgirl.
It's a very Joker thing to do, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, but like, I love the fact that it's him kind of, doing a shot across the bow of being like, y'all don't mess with the Penguin, and here's why.
Yeah.
I appreciated that, the ambition there. I thought that was cool. So I thought there was good action and good animation, and overall I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. So a good solid episode, not quite as good as Batgirl Begins, but good nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, and I will say, and we talked about it, but you were not on the last episode, where season 3 really does feel like a soft reboot of the series, but theme song aside, it feels like it's on a really solid ground now, telling Batman and Batgirl stories.
Yes, agreed. This is what I've been waiting for.
And like, I done told y'all.
And not to be like, I've been waiting for this, but again, when you get to season 4 and they introduce Robin, like, it elevates again, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, what do you get this for a letter grade?
I'd give it an A-.
All right. I was thinking B+.
Okay. Well, split the difference.
Yep. It's good, strong, entertaining episode.
Yeah.
So next one up is A Fistful of Felt. And oh, wow, it looks packed. It's got the ventriloquist, Joker, Penguin, Hugo Strange. Wow. Well, that'll be interesting. So next time, A Fistful of Felt. And I will say it's not going to be on the next episode because that one's already recorded. So it might be in a couple episodes. But next time we review the Batman, that's what's coming up next. But before we say goodbye, we do have to check in with you fine feathered finks and crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Darren. What is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. This is all, Master Wayne.
All right, first email here is from Charlie. It says, I was just listening to your poster episode and the story of the Captain America poster. I had the same exact experience. We went to see a movie, for the life of me, I can't remember which. When we came out, they had just put up the Captain America poster. My friend Sean, a major Marvel fanboy, was literally drooling over the poster. I cared, but not like Sean. He was checking every magazine he could for details. Finally, he gave up. I don't remember how many years later, but I saw the movie at our local video store, VideoQuest, RIP. We rented it, and the disappointment was felt by all. Thankfully, the good name of Captain America was redeemed. Oh, and Batman rules. I thought I had to add that. Charlie. Thank you so much for sharing, Charlie. So, yeah, on the movie poster episode, I talked about seeing that Captain America teaser poster and being so excited, and then nothing. And just sat and waited and waited and waited. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one, Charlie. Again, I still own that 1990 Captain America movie because I kind of have nostalgia for it. But yes, thankfully we've had some good Captain America on film since then. Thank goodness.
I've never seen it. I googled that poster while I was listening to the episode though. And I wanted to mention too, I had a really similar experience to you with that first teaser poster that just had the ears of the symbol and then returns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1991. I'm sure it was around that time. I think I might have even been seeing Ninja Turtles too.
Oh wow!
And yeah, I saw that in the cinema and just like jaw on the floor, like oh my god! And yeah, so very very similar. It was my first, inkling that there was another Batman movie coming out.
It was amazing. So yeah, same experience. I saw that and it was like, finally, because I've been waiting for it since 1989. So yeah. It was a fun episode.
I really wish I could have been on it. It was really good.
Oh, good. Thanks. All right. Next email here is from Adam. It says, "Hey, Andy, Jamie, Brendan, possibly Preston and Catherine, and even Harley via her cameos. I'm a long-time listener, but a first-time emailer. I'm a mail carrier in Indiana, and I always look forward to a new episode whenever they release. I appreciate the positive outlook you guys have. In a world full of negativity, your podcast is an escape, even if only for a little bit. If I have to ask a question, what would be on Batman's playlist for a night out crime fighting? Example, the Rolling Stones, Paint It Black. Once again, thank you for all that you do, Adam from Indiana." Thank you, Adam. And yeah, maybe you deliver Jamie's mail. I don't know, but very cool. Thank you for finally emailing us and for the kind words. And I really do appreciate that. That's a lot. That's great. So anything you think would be on Batman's playlist,
Look,
Brendan?
I'm going to go with the first thing that popped into my head, which is Batman, flying through the streets of Gotham in the Batmobile with a bit of Dragula just cranked.
What's Dragula?
Rob Zombie.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can't help you there.
Really? Okay, I thought you'd be across that one.
I've heard of it, but like I wasn't sure.
It's you know what? I actually kind of like that song. It's very. I think it was on the first Matrix soundtrack too. Like it's yeah, it's a bit of a banger. I'd recommend. Actually, you'd probably be all right on your Halloween playlist too, to be honest.
All right. So it's a great question that I don't have a great answer for because everything I'm thinking of is stuff from Batman soundtracks, which I guess is kind of cheating, isn't it? But you mentioned Halloween playlist, and I know, at least there's some overlap here. I would go with Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party. Just because I love that song. Danny Elfman, he wrote it. Oingo Boingo. I could see, yeah. I feel like Batman would be an Oingo Boingo fan.
Fair enough.
I'm sure there are other answers as well, but I can't think of them. I really should read these ahead of time so I could think about it, but I didn't. All right, next message is from our friend Lee Anchoret. It says, "Hello, gents. I hope everything is well. Just a quick note. I finished reading Identity Crisis again, and I want to shout its praises from every rooftop in Gotham. Honestly, do any of you think this book is an underrated gem? Andy, I feel like you've mentioned it before. Do you think it would ever work in a movie or TV format? I appreciate it would play more as a whodunit rather than a comic movie blockbuster, but I would love to see it adapted one day. Any other under-the-radar stories that come to mind that you would also love to see adapted? All the best, Lee Anchoret." Thanks, Lee. And every time I get a chance to mention how underrated Identity Crisis and how brilliant Identity Crisis is, I do. I've said it a lot. So I'm with you 110%. If y'all have never read Identity Crisis, read it. It is amazing. So I'm with you.
I've never read it, so I can't.
Brendan. It's great. I have a hard time imagining it as a big screen live action movie. I do think you could pull off an animated version. I would probably say a 2-parter because there's a lot of story there. But yeah, Identity Crisis should be held up with the very best DC stories of all time because it's amazing. And yeah, I would love to see an animated version. But I guess the other question, Brandon, are there any other under the radar stories that you would like to see adapted?
I'm terrible at this. I think I've mentioned it on this show before, and the bloody title of it's escaping me at the moment. It'd be like an Elseworld story where the guy is named Clark Kent. It's his real name. But in this world, Superman exists as a fictional character. And he actually starts getting the powers of Superman and becomes Superman in the real world. I'm just trying to think of the bloody name of it. But it's one of my favorite Superman comics ever, even though it's not actually Superman. Yeah, and I'd love to see that as an animated movie. It's really, really good.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I'm sure there are others, but the two that jump to mind because they are two of my favorite Batman stories. One of them I've covered on the show, and that's the Untold Legend of the Batman. That one I really love. God, I think it was from the 80s. The reason I had it is because you could send away for it from the Batman breakfast cereal in 1989, and they sent you 3 issues of the reprints of the Untold Legend of the Batman. But I think that's a great story, and I think that could be a lot of fun in animation. And then the other one is a Riddler story called Dark Knight, Dark City. Okay. And that one I believe has more of a cult following because I have heard other fans mention it. So it's not like it's forgotten, but it's certainly not held up in the same regard as, Hush and The Long Halloween and some of those legendary ones. But it's a really cool, really dark, really creepy Riddler story. And I think that there's a lot of potential there to adapt it.
Superman's Secret Identity is the one I was thinking of.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I have heard of that.
Yeah, it's really good. If you've never read it, I'd jump on it. It's actually, it's 20 years old this year.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Sweet. All right. Just one more email here. It's from Tom Fallows. It says, "Hey guys, you've
been pre-recording. Yeah,
I've recorded multiple times this week. Here's a fun story. I don't care. I'll tell y'all. We're recording this on May 5th. I've already recorded all episodes for May.
Oh wow.
I'm done for the month.
Shit.
Well, here's why. I am about to take multiple trips over the weekends for the next couple of weeks. So
that's fair enough.
Yeah, May has a lot of travel, and so I was like, I have to get ahead of it, otherwise I ain't doing it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is from Tom Fallows. It says, "Hey, I loved your top 10 movie posters episode, and it was cool looking back at each movie. I don't have a question, but I do have a recommendation. How about your top 10 Batman the Animated Series title cards?"
Oh,
They always started a BTAS episode, and it was one of those things that I missed during the New Adventures. Hope you guys have a great podcast, Tom. Thanks, Tom. That's a fun one.
That'd be quite a bit of homework too.
It would. I believe they sell a book of just the title cards from Batman the Animated Series.
Actually,
I don't own it, but I believe they do. And so I should get that and then send one to Jamie, and you should get one.
I think I might already have it now that you mentioned it.
And then it would be much easier because you just kind of could flip through and go, oh, that one. Yeah. I love the idea, Tom. I think that's a really fun idea, and I hadn't thought of it. So I'll add it to the list. So thank you for the recommendation. And I will say, Tom, and anyone else listening, I love the recommendations. I really do. It gets hard thinking of ideas week in, week out of being like, what else can we do? What else haven't we done? And so I love the suggestions. Keep them coming. Because I do also keep a running list. So that way every week I'm like, well, here are a couple things that are on the list, and we go from there. So thank you, Tom. I like the idea. Now I have to find that book and see how much it is.
From memory, it wasn't cheap.
Of course. Why would it be?
Well, I say that, buying it here. Well, not that I actually was gifted to me, but it was quite expensive here in Australia.
Well, if you had to ship it from the States, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, well.
The book was $50. Shipping was $150.
Not far wrong.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
Every Christmas, I know.
It's the same here, don't you?
I know. Anyway, all right, we're closing the Wayne Manor mailbox. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, you can send that to Holy BatCast at rf4rm.com. And as long as I've already said it, yes, a lot of episodes have been pre-recorded this month. So if you do email, it just might take a few weeks before I record again, where it will be new and you will hear it at that point. So
keep in mind, we're going to get in the next couple of weeks our first look at the Superman costume.
Yep,
we're going to get an announcement of casting title, and date for Brave and the Bold.
You're welcome.
And there's probably going to be some major news about the Batman Part 2.
I do what I can. I am going on another week-long cruise. And so, yeah, that week is just choice for all of those things to happen. Which means I'll come back and we'll have tons to talk about, and it'll be terrific. All right. Well, that is where we're going to end this episode of Holy BatCast. Brendan, it was great having you back. I miss you when you're gone, so it's nice when we can align schedules yet again.
It was great to be here, and another peek behind the curtain. I know there were some scheduling issues this week that were all completely my fault, and I on the record, I do want to apologize again for that. Because
don't worry, I called you out on the episode you missed.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, I had a rough week and my brain was mush, but anyway, no excuse. Anyway.
I loved getting your message of like, hey, did we make a plan for this week? I was like, yes, you agreed to it. And you were like, oh crap.
Yeah.
It's fine, dude. It's fine.
It's podcasting. I know, but it's not normally my fault. It's not. Anyway, but I did. I felt really bad. So just so it's on the record, so you know. But look, yes, it was great to be back, and I'm just, it's a shame now that you're going to be gone for another few weeks. I want to jump on again as soon as possible, but same as always. If people want to find me, I'm in the Real Fans groups on Facebook and Letterboxd, and not really Twitter X anymore. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm finding I'm getting a few more followers sort of sporadically coming through on Letterboxd, and I'm sure it's because of this show. So
I love that. That's great. I think that, though, you lost some this week when you watched Godzilla -1.
I've updated my star review, by the way.
Oh, good. We've guilted you into it. Perfect.
No, you make a good point. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I already told you guys where to follow me and Brendan. Yeah, always a pleasure. Thanks again for jumping on, and we will do it as soon as I'm back. It's going to be terrific. We got some random stuff coming up over the next couple weeks, or I guess in the last week. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy it. But coming up on the next episode, like I said, it's already been recorded. We're going to start our little celebration of 35 years of Batman 89.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that'll be coming out.
I don't even know what you've done.
I know, surprise, something to look out for. So, just giving you a little tease, something to look forward to, and I feel comfortable doing it because it's been recorded and it's ready to go. But anyway, thanks for downloading or for streaming the show, and the most important thing is just follow or subscribe to the show so you don't miss fun things like what's coming your way, and wherever you get your podcasts. Something else you can do that doesn't cost a penny and an easy way to support the show is just leave a nice review. A nice review goes a long way, and we would certainly appreciate that. It would mean a lot. Also, find Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, that email address again is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by the talented Gaurav Venkateswar. You can find his work at gvtunes.com. And don't forget to check out our sponsors over at manscaped.com. Do a little shopping and use the promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. But that will do it for this episode. Thanks for joining us. On behalf of Brendan, I've been Andy. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Oh, hang on.
Stay puffed in blue.
Hello, darling. Are you coming to say...
Stay puffed.
My Stay Puffed is blue at the moment. That's my light up marshmallow man. Say goodnight.
Wow.
Good night.
Love you. We were just talking about you.
And what an angel you are.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Okay, see ya. Have a good rest. I'll see you when you wake up. Love you.
Love you.
Bye. Keep walking.
Oh, it was Henry's turn.
Yeah.
It was his turn. Yeah.